Senator McAllister.
Thank you very much, Mr Acting Deputy President. There is a lot that is worth saying about marriage, but there is also a lot that has already been said in the almost 50 hours of debate on this issue across the last two parliaments. And accordingly, as someone who has spoke on this issue in this place on quite a number of occasions in the last couple of years, I intend to keep my remarks very brief. After the celebrations and the relief over the result of the postal survey last week, we now have a responsibility to deliver on the very clear mandate that we've been given. It's clear that the people of Australia overwhelmingly support marriage equality. There is no hidden army of social conservatives. Years of polling were right. The belief in marriage equality is a belief that unites us, not one that divides us. Senior members of this government have given a commitment that marriage equality will now be legislated swiftly and fairly, and I hope so. It is what the Australian people expect, and it's what the LGBTI community deserve. The LGBTI community has spent generations struggling for equality. It's been a very long road, from criminalisation to tolerance, and again, from tolerance to acceptance and respect. And that struggle has asked a lot. It's asked a lot of the LGBTI community, and it has taken a lot from them. The campaign during the postal survey has been no exception. The past few months have been bruising and hurtful for the LGBTI community. As the chair of the Senate committee looking into the conduct of the postal survey, I've seen much of the material that's been produced and distributed over the course of the campaign. This is material that has been put into people's letterboxes, it has been sent to them on Facebook, it's been spray painted on their homes. It has been cruel, it has been crude, and it has been spiteful. And what this material tells us is that there are still a small number of people out there, a very small number I believe, but a highly motivated and small group of people who wish to roll back the rights that have been acquired by gay and lesbian Australians. Harm to the gay community is not merely an unfortunate collateral of their campaign. It was one of their primary goals. And this is the context that I think we need to keep in mind when we consider the consequences of some of the changes to the bill that have been floated in public debate. I am conscious that a number of senators have flagged amendments to this bill in their public comments. And while we're yet to see the detail of some of these amendments, I think what is proposed is to radically extend the reach of conventional interpretations of freedom of religion. And in anticipation of seeing these amendments, I'd like to make a few observations from a first principles basis about how we might approach them. Many arguments have hinged on Article 18 of the International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights, and it's the article that provides for freedom of religion. And I just want to make two observations about that article. The first is this. It provides some quite helpful guidance, I think, about how we might think about this notion of freedom of religion. It states that everyone shall have the freedom of thought, conscience and religion. And that, of course, is something that we all accept and ought to embrace in the chamber. And it goes on to say this right shall include the freedom to have or to adopt a religion or belief of his choice, and freedom either individually or in community with others and in public or in private to manifest his religion or belief in worship, in observance, in practice and teaching. Those things are important, but it doesn't make mention here of commerce. It doesn't make mention here about decisions around employment. It doesn't make mention here about decisions about rent or providing accommodation. It's very specific, in fact, about the kinds of activities that we might ordinarily understand to be involved in the exercise of freedom of religion. And the second observation I'd make is that the Covenant specifically acknowledges that freedom to manifest one's religions or beliefs may be subject only to such limitations as are prescribed by law and are necessary to protect public safety, order, health or morals, or the fundamental rights and freedoms of others. It's a reminder that we can't just pick and choose those articles of the Covenant that we choose to engage with. We need to read it as a whole, and we need to understand that this right to freedom of religion, must be balanced against the other fundamental human rights that are contained in the Covenant. Australia's anti-discrimination laws already reflect a settlement of this kind. They reflect a conversation that we've had publicly over many decades. They prohibit discrimination on a range of grounds, but they do provide exemptions for religious institutions to conduct their own affairs consistent with their own religious beliefs. And the bill that's before us today also represents a settlement of this kind. Settled, I should indicate, unanimously in a committee process that was populated by senators from both sides of the aisle. But specifically, the bill exempts religious organisations from the obligation to recognise same-sex marriage. And I do say to those who might seek to extend these exemptions to allow individuals to discriminate in other domains, in commerce, employment, perhaps in housing, you really ought to proceed with caution. Australian history provides many examples of discrimination that was grounded, arguably, in religious belief. As a Protestant living and working in Queensland, my grandfather complained bitterly about Catholic preferment in parts of the Queensland Public Service. Now, lest anyone here be concerned that I seek to re-prosecute this grievance on some sectarian basis, I can provide some reassurance. I don't seek to do that. In fact, I'm absolutely confident that a similar or perhaps worse grievance might have been heard in Catholic households in Queensland in the same period. It wasn't unknown for job advertisements to be placed which stipulated that no Catholics need apply, and it was quite ordinary in job applications for applicants to be asked for their religious affiliation as part of the interview process. We should welcome decline of sectarianism of this kind and the associated discrimination. This decline actually provides some indication of the boundaries we've set for ourselves as a society. Australians accept that we are all free to practice our faith, but we're rightly cautious about obligations of faith or an interpretation of the obligations of faith that would seek to justify discrimination in every area of public life. And so I say to those senators opposite who are considering amendments around religious freedom, we ought to think very carefully about how religious freedoms interact with other important freedoms that are found in the International Covenant, but also found to have been settled in sensible ways in Australian political history. I want to conclude by acknowledging the hard work of all of those who have fought for marriage equality. There are, of course, many people in this chamber, many people in the other place, who have put their own lives into the public domain, opened them up for discussion in the pursuit of change. But I think the real heroes are those many people not elected to Parliament, living ordinary lives, who've borne the brunt of discrimination and who have nonetheless chosen to stand up and say, this is fair. I wish to marry the person that I love. I want that love to be recognised, and I want it to be recognised not just in the community but in law. I'm extremely proud that the Australian community has endorsed that position and I look forward to such a law being made in this parliament in the very near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator McAllister.